true real-life story. The Duke thought she had nowhere else to go. Then she disappeared without a word. A story of silent courage and the quiet power of walking away. Nobody noticed the morning Eleanor left. That was the most telling thing of all, not that she went, but that her going looked exactly like every other morning. The fire in the drawing room was lit. The teacups were arranged. The curtains were pulled back to let in the gray October light. And Eleanor Harrington, wife of Edmund Harrington, the Duke of Aldenmere, moved through the house as she always did, quietly, carefully, without a sound. She set his tea on the small table beside his chair. She placed the morning newspaper next to it, folded the way he preferred, back page facing up, because he liked to read the shipping news first. She looked at him for a moment. He did not look up. He never did. She walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped outside into the cool London air. The door closed behind her with a soft click. She did not come back. Eleanor had been married to Edmund for 8 years. 8 years is a long time to be invisible inside your own home. That was the only way she could describe it, in the quiet of her own thoughts, invisible. Not mistreated. Not shouted at. Not made to feel small by words or actions that anyone else could point to and call wrong. Just, unseen. Like a piece of furniture that was useful but never remarkable. Like the wall clock in the hallway, which kept perfect time and which nobody ever thanked. Edmund Harrington was 41 years old. He was tall, well-dressed, and considered by most of London society to be a man of great character. He attended the right events. He gave money to the right causes. He spoke in measured, confident sentences that made people feel as though the conversation was in very capable hands. He had inherited the dukedom when he was 22, and from that age forward he had never once needed to wonder whether he belonged in a room. Every room already knew he did. Eleanor had come from a quieter world. Her father, Clarence Ashworth, was a bookkeeper, a careful, patient man who had spent his life keeping other people's accounts in order. Growing up in their small Dorset cottage, Eleanor had learned to love numbers the way some children love stories. Numbers were honest. They did not pretend. A column that did not add up was simply wrong, and the only thing to do was find the error and correct it. She had applied this logic, without quite knowing it, to most things in life. When she married Edmund at the age of 21, she believed the arithmetic of the marriage was simple. She would be a good wife. He would be a good husband. Together they would build something steady and warm. She was not foolish or romantic about it. She simply trusted the equation. The equation, as it turned out, did not balance. In the 6th year of their marriage, Edmund's solicitor fell ill for several months. Edmund, with the casual confidence of a man used to delegating, handed Eleanor the household accounts and said she could manage the figures until the man recovered. She managed them so well that Edmund never asked for them back. By the end of that year, Eleanor was running the entire financial operation of Aldenmere House, staff wages, property costs, supplier accounts, bank correspondence, and the quarterly reports that went to 2 different solicitors. She did this without a desk of her own, sitting at the small writing table in the blue room, the one Edmund used for letters he considered too minor for his study. He told his friends at dinner one evening that he had an excellent solicitor. One of them asked who it was. Edmund gave the name of Mr. Crane, the man who had been ill for 3 seasons and had not, in that time, managed a single figure. Eleanor was in the room when he said it. She was pouring water into the glasses at the far end of the table. She did not correct him. She set the water jug down, returned to her seat, and continued the conversation with the woman beside her about the late autumn gardens at Kensington. But she filed the moment away in her mind, in the way she filed everything, quietly and permanently. That was the night she understood something she had been slow to see. Edmund did not dislike her. He did not wish her harm. He simply did not think about her at all. She was woven so deeply into the background of his life that he had stopped registering her presence the way you stop hearing the clock after a while. She was just there. She had always been there. She would always be there. He had never once considered the possibility that she might not be. In early 1888, a letter arrived from Dorset. Eleanor's father was ill. She asked Edmund if she might go and see him. He said yes, of course, though he used the tone of a man giving a small permission, as if she had asked to borrow something that was his. She packed a bag and took the train south alone. She sat beside her father in the evenings in the small cottage where she had grown up, watching the firelight move across the familiar walls, the shelves of ledgers, the window that looked out over the garden her mother had planted before she died. Her father talked to her about his accounts. He showed her what he had saved. It was not a great sum, but it was tidy and well managed, and it was hers, he told her, entirely hers. He had made sure of it legally. He did not say why he was telling her now, in such detail, with such care. They both understood without saying it. On one of their last evenings together, he said something she would keep for the rest of her life. He said, "Eleanor, a number does not become less real because nobody has written it down. Neither do you." He died 3 weeks later. She came back to London. Edmund expressed his condolences at breakfast and then asked if she had managed to sort out the supplier invoice that had come in the day she left. She said yes, she had arranged it before she went. He nodded and returned to his newspaper. Something in Eleanor settled that morning. Not broke, settled. Like a decision that has been forming for a long time and finally becomes clear. She began to plan. She did it the only way she knew how, slowly, carefully, without a single wasted step. Over the following 14 months, she opened a private savings account at a bank in the city under her maiden name, Eleanor Ashworth, which was a name she had never legally given up. She made small, steady transfers from the household accounts she managed. Each transfer was within her authority. Each one was documented. There was nothing hidden about it, except the intention behind it. She wrote to her oldest friend, Dora Finch, who had moved to Edinburgh after her husband passed away. Dora had a spare room and a warm kitchen and the particular kind of friendship that asks nothing and offers everything. Eleanor wrote carefully. She said she might be coming north. She did not say when. She did not say why. Dora wrote back, "The room will be ready." Eleanor arranged for her father's cottage in Dorset to be rented out through a letting agent, the correspondence for which she directed to a rented postal address near Holborn. She read everything she could find about the Married Women's Property Act of 1882, a law that had quietly changed what a wife was allowed to own, to keep, to control. She read it several times. She made notes. She made sure she understood every word of it. She put the Aldenmere House accounts in perfect order. She annotated every file. She cross-referenced 3 years of records. She wrote a clear, brief guide for whoever would take over after her, not that she said so, of course. She simply made it impossible for anything to be lost or confused. She was, as her father had raised her to be, meticulous. In the months before she left, Eleanor did something that even she had not fully expected. She became, briefly, more present. She attended 2 dinners she would normally have declined. She spent a long afternoon with Edmund's younger sister, Cecily, at a garden party in Kensington, talking, laughing a little, asking about Cecily's watercolors. Cecily was surprised by the warmth of it. She told a friend later that Eleanor had seemed somehow different that afternoon. More herself. She could not explain exactly what she meant by that. Edmund noticed none of it. On the morning of the second Tuesday of October 1889, Eleanor rose at her usual time. She dressed. She came downstairs. She arranged the teacup. She folded the newspaper. She set everything exactly as it should be. She had packed one trunk the evening before. She had asked the footman, Thomas, to have it collected by a carrier at 6 in the morning, before the rest of the household was properly awake. Thomas had done as he was asked without question. Eleanor had worked with Thomas for 5 years. She trusted his discretion, and she was right to. Before she left, she placed one envelope on the writing desk in Edmund's study. It was not addressed to him. It was addressed to the household staff, Mrs. Baines the housekeeper, Thomas, cook, the 2 housemaids, the gardener. She had written a short note to each of them individually, thanking them by name, wishing them well in their futures, noting something specific and kind about each person. She had enclosed a small amount of money for each, from her own account. She wrote nothing to Edmund. She had thought about it. She had sat at the writing table in the blue room, on her last evening, with a piece of paper in front of her and a pen in her hand. She had thought for a long time. And then she had put the pen down and folded the paper away. There was nothing she could write to him that he would understand. Not because he was a bad man, but because he had never developed the habit of seeing her. A letter would have required him to read it. And to read it properly, he would have needed to imagine her, to picture her sitting, thinking, feeling, deciding. He had never done that before. She did not think a letter would teach him how. The absence of a letter was the clearest thing she could say. She pulled on her coat, picked up her small traveling bag, and walked out the front door. Edmund did not notice she was gone until late afternoon. He assumed she had gone visiting. He ate lunch alone, which was not unusual. He had a meeting in the afternoon, which went well. He came home at 4:30 and found Mrs. Baines waiting for him in the hallway with an expression on her face that he could not quite read. She handed him the envelope. He read the letters to the staff standing at his desk. He read them once and then read them again. He sat down in his chair. The room was very quiet. A fire was burning in the grate. Everything was perfectly in order, because it always was, because Eleanor had always made it so. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked steadily. Edmund stared at the letters in his hand and said nothing for a very long time. There was no letter for him. That was the part he kept returning to. Everything else was explained, arranged, and accounted for. The staff had been thanked. The house was in order. The accounts were filed. The only thing missing was a single word addressed to him, and that absence sat in the room with him like a presence of its own. He engaged Mr. Crane, the actual Mr. Crane, now recovered, to find her. He was clear that it should be done quietly. He was a duke. There must be no scandal. Mr. Crane was efficient and thorough. He traced the Ashworth account at the City Bank. He found the Dorset letting agent. He followed the Holborn postal address. He spoke to Thomas, who confirmed only what he had directly observed and nothing more. Everything Mr. Crane found was clean. There was no confusion, no deception, no wrongdoing of any kind. Every account Eleanor had opened was legal. Every transfer she had made was within her rights. She had not taken anything that was not hers. She had arranged everything properly, leaving no debt, no disorder, no problem for anyone to solve. She had departed the way she had lived, without causing trouble for a single person. Mr. Crane located her in Edinburgh by December. She was renting a flat near the Water of Leith. She was tutoring 4 students a week in bookkeeping and household accounts. She was, by all appearances, well. He reported this to Edmund. Edmund read the report in his study and sat with it for 3 days before he responded. During those 3 days, Cecily came to visit. She found her brother quieter than she had ever seen him. She sat with him in the drawing room and after a while she asked him one question. She said, "Edmund, did you ever ask Eleanor what she wanted? Not what was needed, or what was convenient, but what she actually wanted." He did not answer. Cecily left after an hour. Edmund went back to his study and sat alone in the room where the fire ticked and the accounts were filed and everything was in perfect order, and he tried very hard to remember a single conversation in which he had asked his wife that question. He could not find one. He wrote to her. It took him 4 attempts. The first 3 he threw into the fire. The 4th he kept, though he was not entirely satisfied with it. It was 3 pages long. It said that the house did not function the way it should. It said that he had not realized. It said that he would like her to return. He wrote around a word for most of those 3 pages without ever quite landing on it, a 4-letter word that he had simply never made a habit of saying and so found, now that he most needed it, that he did not know how to shape it into a sentence. He sealed the letter before he could change his mind and sent it north. Eleanor received it on a Thursday morning. She was sitting at the small table in her Edinburgh kitchen. Through the window she could see the narrow street outside, wet with light rain, a woman walking a dog, a baker opening his shutters across the way. She read the letter once. She made a cup of tea. She read it again. She folded it neatly and put it in a drawer. Then she sat down and wrote her reply. Her letter was not long. She told him that she did not believe he was a cruel man. She told him that what he had done, and she was careful to name it as something done, not simply something that had happened, was make her feel that she did not exist inside her own life. She told him that she had managed the accounts of his house for 3 years without receiving acknowledgement, and that this was a small example of something much larger. She told him she bore no anger toward him. Anger, she had found, was not a useful tool. What she carried instead was something quieter, a simple, clear certainty that she deserved to be seen. She told him she hoped he would find someone who would manage his home well and whom he would remember to look at. She signed the letter, Eleanor Ashworth. A year passed. Edmund was different, though not dramatically so. He was quieter. He listened more carefully at dinners, in a way that occasionally surprised the people across the table from him. He managed his own accounts for a while, because he felt he owed it to himself to understand them, and he found the experience genuinely humbling. He spoke to Mrs. Baines by name more often. He remembered to thank the cook. Small things. He was not sure whether they were enough, or what enough would even mean in a case like his. He kept Eleanor's letter in the top drawer of his desk. Not because he planned to answer it again, he did not, but because he found that reading it every so often was the most honest thing he could do with himself. In Edinburgh, Eleanor's mornings had a rhythm that she had built herself, piece by piece, the way her father had built his ledgers, one careful entry at a time. She taught her students 3 days a week. She took long walks along the river with Dora on the other days. She had discovered, to her own surprise, that she liked to write, not accounts or letters, but thoughts. Observations. Small true things about the world around her. The notebooks piled up on her windowsill. Her handwriting, which had always been neat and contained, had grown slightly larger over the months, as if the letters themselves were no longer trying to take up as little space as possible. She did not consider herself a brave person. She had done what she had done carefully, slowly, and only after a very long time. She had not raised her voice or made a dramatic gesture. She had simply decided, one quiet morning, that she was real as any number in any ledger, and that reality deserved to be recorded somewhere other than a small table in a blue room where no one ever looked. She had walked through a door. The door had been there the whole time. The end. True real-life story, third-person narrative.